Lesson 5. Legal pyramid schemes. Give money and power to the US government is like giving whiskey and car keys to a teenage boy. P.J.O. Rourke, political commentator. It should be obvious to you now why illegal pyramid schemes are, well, illegal. Illegal gambling, illegal airplane games, Ponzi schemes, and outright rip-offs that permit a select few to get rich at the expense of many others. These acts break human laws. But there's another set of laws that govern how humans live and work. Natural laws, God's laws. It's these laws that Dr. Black was speaking about when he said that pyramids collapse when there is no value flowing down to balance the power of the dollars or votes flowing up. The biggest pyramid scheme in the world. The alarming truth is that there are many organizations and enterprises in the world that are without a doubt a pyramid schemes of the highest, or more accurately, lower order. In fact, the biggest pyramid scheme in the entire world is legal. The pyramid that I'm talking about is run by the United States government. It's called Social Security. There's not a person in America under age 50 who should expect to collect all their Social Security benefits at retirement. Everybody knows the Social Security Administration will be broke by the time all the baby boomers start collecting their fair share. Really, what is Social Security but a huge pyramid scheme? Here's why I say that. You pay a percentage of your earnings every month of your working life via a payroll tax. And a pretty big chunk it is, too, so that one day when you retire at 62, 63, 64, 65, if you live that long, you'll get a monthly benefit check till the day you die. How much do you pay in? Right now, the law requires employees to pay 7.65% of their gross income up to $90,000 for Social Security and Medicare, 6.2% for Social Security, 1.45% for Medicare. If you are self-employed, you have to pay twice, once as the employer and a second time as an employee, doubling your payroll taxes to 15.3%. Ouch, ouch. Considering the US has nearly 150 million people paying into Social Security each paycheck, that's a big chunk of change going into the Social Security trust fund each month. Did I just say trust fund? Double goof. There is no trust, much less a fund. Politicians call it a fund, but it's really a funny fund because no fund actually exists. No fund, no savings account, no CDs, no nothing, but dusty IOUs from the US government. The revolving revenue door. So what happens to the money that the government takes in from Social Security and Medicare taxes? It goes right back out to people eligible to draw Social Security, retirees, survivors, and the disabled. What's left over goes into the general budget, and our elected officials spend it on roads. If you are lucky, or failed government programs like the $20 billion anti-drug media campaign that the government reluctantly admits has had zero effect on illegal drug use. In other words, when the US government uses new investor money to pay early investors and then squanders the rest, it's a legal pyramid. But when Carlo Ponzi did the same thing, it was an illegal pyramid. Now here's the really scary part. When Social Security was enacted in 1935, there was 35 workers for every eligible person, and life expectancy was around 60. In 2026, the year the government will be paying out more in Social Security benefits than it takes in with payroll taxes, there will be 2 workers for every eligible recipient. Life expectancy will be near 80. So what are politicians doing to avert this looming crisis? Nothing constructive, just spouting slogans and pointing fingers at whichever party is in power. Cue Nero's fiddle while Rome burns. Under 40? Congratulations, you get to pick up the paycheck. Right now, the government is doing okay with their version of Ponzi scheme because between 1946 and mid-1960s, 76 million kids were born into a huge mega group of humanity called the baby boom. All these millions of boomers have been donating money into the funds all their working lives, and they are paying for those folks who are old enough to qualify for Social Security benefits right now. But what happens when it comes time for the first of those 676 million baby boomers to start collecting, which will occur starting in 2008? You guessed it. There won't be enough money to pay all those. It's my time to collect boomers. You see, after the baby boom came the baby bust, and there have been nowhere near the same number of the births since the baby boom, and probably never will be again. So there will be far fewer people paying in money than there are taking it out. In business terms, it's called a negative cash flow. Too much money at the end of the month. Did you know that males who turn 30 in 1990 will pay $200,000 billion more into Social Security than they ever will take out? Fact is, 70% of American families pay more in FICA, Social Security and Medicare, than they pay in income taxes. Talk about a scam and a scheme. What's going to happen when the first wave of baby boomers takes out so much money that there's nothing left? Your kids and grandkids will be working overtime to pay a whole bunch of old geezers to fish and play golf. If you thought there was a generation gap in the 60s, just wait until Gen Xers start paying $1,000 a month or more in Social Security taxes so that the boomers can live the life of Riley in Sun City, Florida. The crash of an airplane game will be like a flying going down the toilet compared to the nationwide devastation when Social Security crashes. You tell me, is value flowing down this pyramid? Sure, in dribs and drabs until it dries up. Sounds a lot like a Carlo Ponzi scheme, doesn't it? It pays, and pays, and pays, and pays to be at the top. The essence of all pyramid scheme, the legal ones and the legal ones, is that the guys at the top get rich while everybody else at the bottom loses out. It's like when corporate CEOs get paid millions and millions in pays, perks, and benefits while the stock prices takes a nosedive. Larry Ellison, the CEO of the Oracle software, for example, hauled in nearly $800 million during the dot-com bust while the company's stock dropped 61%. So what did Ellison do? While thousands of loyal Oracle employees received pink slips and tens of thousands of stockholders lost their shirts? Why, he bought the world's largest privately owned boat, a 550-foot mega yacht costing $125 million. The money that the guys sitting on top of the corporate pyramids make these days is nothing short of criminals, unless, of course, it is criminal like Andrew Fastow of Enron and Bernie Ebbers of WorldCom. Just two of the dozens of top executives who were caught with their hands in the cookie jar in the go-go years before the dot-com bubble burst. Both men were sentenced to prison for their contributions to two of the biggest corporate frauds in American history. They drove their respective companies into bankruptcy, costing tens of thousands of employees their jobs and wiping out employees' pensions, some of which were worth millions. Fastow cried at his sentencing. I, on the other hand, did shed so much as a tear for either of those Ponzi scheme crooks. Have you no shame? Meanwhile, the rest of the top dogs at public companies are taking payouts just as big as Fastow and Ebbers, but eager to stay out of the prison. Cautious CEOs are stuffing their pockets with perfectly legal tactics, oversized paychecks, and an obscene number of stock options. Since 1980s, average CEO pay has skyrocketed 442%, while average workers' pay has inched up less than 2% during the same time period. How piggish is CEO pay? The average CEO of a Fortune 100 company makes nearly $15 million per year. Compare that to an average worker who makes less than $30,000 per year. If average worker pay had grown at the same rate of CEO pay since 1980s, workers would be earning $164,000 a year instead of $30,000. You know, CEO pay is out of control when pro-business Fortune magazine featured a smiling pig in a suit on their cover with this headline, CEO pay, have they no shame? American CEOs are the worst abusers. CEOs in the US are paid more than twice as much as a Canadian CEOs, 3 times more than a British CEOs, and 4 times more than a German CEOs. Have you no shame? Indeed. It's good to be a CEO. Fact is, if you are a CEO, it even pays to fail. Michael Eisner, former head of Disney, is a poster boy for CEOs who are overpaid for being under producer. During the 10 years Eisner headed up Disney, the stock gained 1.9% compared to the 9.1 average return for the Fortune 500 companies. So what did Eisner earn for his dismissal performance? A total of $915 million, which calculates to nearly $2 million a week for each of his 500 weeks at the helm. If that's not enough, top executives are routinely given stock options worth tens of millions as part of their compensation package. Problem with stock option is that Congress passed a law saying companies don't have to have the options to give the top managers, which means giant multinational companies can give away hundreds of millions of shares worth hundreds of billions of dollars and not have to report it to the SEC or stockholders, who are the ones subsidizing the giveaways. Last time I looked, there were more than 300 CEOs of Fortune 500 companies who are in line to receive more than $100 million each in a stock options. And that's on top of their multi-million-dollar annual paycheck. One CEO, William W. Maguire of United Health Group, is sitting on, now get this, more than $1.6 billion in a company stock. Pretty good deal if you are a big honcho in a corner office, huh? What's the damage to the little people at the bottom of the pyramid? Billions of dollars out of stockholders' pocket and into the top of the pyramid executives' pockets, and it's all perfectly legal. By the way, do you know who determines the CEO's pay at these major corporations? The board of directors. And guess who has the biggest say when it comes to choosing the member of boards? You got that right, the CEO himself. But hey, that's business, it's not personal, right? You mean like the business of government? Paying for performance. Tell me, does it make sense to you to raise the pay of a congressman and senators who's been running USA Inc. at the loss and not billions but trillions of dollars for generations? And then our elected leaders have the nerve to set up a cushy pension plan that will pad their pockets for years after they voted out of office. Even if they only serve one term, no wonder politicians have a bad name. Look, you're a stockholder in this country. We all are. How do you feel about the performance of the executives and the managers in your government? Remember, these guys work for us. And remember too, these are the people who provide the military with $650 hammers and $6,000 toilets. Not their money, not their problem. Does all that make sense to you? We pour in money. Politicians call it revenue. We citizens call it tax. And the politicians spend us into the poorhouse despite record revenue flowing in the IRS. Why not? They aren't accountable until the next election, right? As one political observer put in recent years, Washington, wrestling with the budget deficit, has come to resemble more and more a drunk wrestling with the alcoholism. How does the US compare to other countries? Well, thanks to the huge deficits and the looming Social Security and Medicare crisis that our politicians refuse to act on. The World Economic Forum ranked the US 6th in the global competitiveness, behind Nigeria, Peru, Uganda, Venezuela, and Vietnam. corporate welfare, and a national shame. What about government-supported corporate welfare? How's that for money going up the pyramid and no value coming down? Talk about fleecing the market, American public. Federal corporate welfare program cost American taxpayers $150 billion annually while the federal deficit spins out of control. Everybody applauded when Congress passed workfare laws that reduce welfare rolls by as much as 50%. However, corporate welfare in the form of tax breaks, subsidies, and grants to huge corporations has risen to $150 billion a year, which, if rescinded, you would reduce over our federal deficit by 15% within a year. Not surprisingly, the biggest hogs feeding at the tax-funded trough are also the biggest political contributors. Surprise, surprise. Archer Daniels Midlands, ADM, the world's biggest agricultural processor and distributor, has received more than $300 billion since the mid-90s in the subsidies for ethanol. Meanwhile, ethanol prices have spiked through the roof, and as a result, ADM is earning record profits. Meanwhile, the corporate welfare tax breaks to ADM continue. Haven't heard enough? There's another corporate welfare boondoggle. Since 1999, Walmart, the biggest world and the most profitable company, has received more than $1 billion in subsidies, tax breaks, free land, and cash grants to build stores and distribution centers in 240 locations across 35 states. It's scandalous that a multinational company with $10 billion in annual profits receive a dime of taxpayer money, much less billions of dollars in benefits. Why is the US government playing Robin Hood in reverse, shaking down the poor and the middle class in order to hand out $100 plus billion a year to Fortune 500 companies that are raking in record profits? Employing lobbyists is the middleman. Corporations are slicing a large piece of their profit pie and depositing into politicians' pocketbooks. Come to think of it, maybe the American dream isn't being stolen after all. It's being sold to the higher bidder. Corporate welfare is armed robbery using politicians instead of a pistol. Even Ponzi himself couldn't have thought of scams as outrageous as these. Paying your unfair share of taxes. Do you think it's fair that individuals, many of whom struggle from paycheck to paycheck, are paying more in income taxes while humongous corporations earning billions each year are paying less? Fair? No. Fact? Yes. In the 1950s, 28% of federal revenues came from corporate taxes. Today, corporate revenues represents only 7% of all federal tax receipts, and 75% decrease. Who picks up the difference? Individual taxpayers. That's who, you and me, and that's who. Meanwhile, the corporate fat cat exchange high fives and award themselves more stock options. Could it be the US government is a legal pyramid scheme? I hate to think so, but look at the facts. Our leaders in Washington have run up a $5 trillion national debt while penning laws with loopholes that enable major corporations to pay less and less taxes. Meanwhile, Congress authorizes the IRS to pay outside agencies 24% commission to collect back taxes from individual taxpayers. Let's see. The IRS is terrorizing the little people while sipping martinis and corporate fat cats. Is this what the founding fathers had in mind when forming a new nation? Don't think so. As for the IRS, it's choking on incompetence and bureaucratic red tape. The IRS recently spent $8 billion of our tax dollars to overhaul its computer programs. What we got for that money was, a top official admitted, a system that does not work in the real world. Here's a proof. The IRS sends out 30 million tax penalty notices each year. Yet, according to their own admission, nearly 50% are incorrect. This is an agency that is so incompetent that they could not account for 64% of their budget at the year-end audit. The IRS is worse than a pyramid scheme. At least Ponzi knew how much money he was stealing. What about the real American dream? Winning the lottery? We still have that, right? Sure we do. Hey, new millionaires are created every month in 40 and growing weekly state lotteries around the country. It's legalized gambling, generating more revenues than casinos, and the government is on it. Americans spend $45 billion per year on state lotteries. Half of all Americans play the lottery at least occasionally, spending an average of $155 a year on tickets, more than they spend on books and movies combined. Just look at the line of people buying a lottery tickets. Who's playing? The people who can least afford to play, right? This is crazy. You got a better chance of being hit by lightning twice than winning the lottery. So who's really the winner? The government, bureaucrats, and the administrators once again. The fat cats at the top. Everybody else loses. Wait a minute, isn't that the definition of illegal pyramid scheme? Aren't they playing a money merry-go-round just like Ponzi did? Nah, it's legal because the government's running it. And besides, all that money is supposed to go for new roads and bridges and public schools. And, yeah, right, where's the money really going? In what direction is the value really flowing? Not down to you and me, that's for sure. Oh, I almost forgot about two of our favorite sacred cows. Charity and education. Charities like the United Way are do-good and non-profit organizations that we can trust, right? Wrong. Non-profit for you and me, maybe, but all too often, big profits for the hypocrites who run them. A former director of the United Way was paid $463,000 a year plus perks, including 100 free trips a year to Las Vegas for business. Yeah, monkey business. Get this, 33 different non-profit organizations, including the Boy Scout of America, pay their directors over $200,000 a year. In many non-profits, less than 5% of the revenue is actually spent helping the victims, while 95% goes to the pay expenses, including, you guessed it, the salaries, expense accounts, medical benefits, and retirement packages for administrators and directors. And you thought all your money went to kids and cancer research? Not. How about a college education? Oh, there's a great one. They call it higher education because that's where the costs are headed. Every year, higher. Tell me, where else can you spend $40,000, $50,000, and $60,000 a year for 4 years or more to receive a piece of paper that does not even guarantee you a decent job? Who gets a good job right out of college? With the exception of top jocks who turn the pro sports, it's those very few of the top their classes in those few top universities that cost a fortune. Sounds a tad exclusive, kind of like the airplane games. For the last 20 years, college costs have tripled, increasing at about twice the rate of inflation. As I write this, the average loan debt for students with loans is $19,000. According to the USA Today, parents in their 20s will need to save nearly $5,000 a year for 18 years to put one child through college. Scary to think, but college tuition is rising faster than medical care in this country. And where does the lion's share of these burgeoning tuitions go? Most of the faculty and the staff, of course. Nearly 2/3 of tuition goes to paying salaries of employees. Full tenured professors earn an average of $80,000 a year, plus free insurances, health insurance, and fat retirement pensions. Add to that of an extra income many professors receive from textbook sales, bookstore sales, consulting fees, royalties on patented products, and the speaking fees. It's not uncommon for professors to earn $2, $3, $5, even $10 million a year for sideline enterprises without teaching a single class. They're unpaid grad students to do most of the teaching. I tell you, it's a legal pyramid scheme. More and more dollars are flowing up the higher ed pyramid, and less value is flowing down. A college degree used to guarantee you a good job with a growing company. Now all it guarantees is a night shift at the local Starbucks. Illusion versus reality. Most people are under the illusion that they will graduate from college and walk right into the solid career opportunity. Boy, are they ever in for a reality check? That kind of thinking reminds me of a story about a man who died and went to purgatory. The archangel in charge explained to the man that he could choose between going to heaven or hell, and once he made the choice, that was it. The man asked if he could see them both before he made his final choice. The archangel said, "Sure." When they got to heaven, it was beautiful. Everybody was smiling. It was peaceful and tranquil, just perfect. The people seemed content and so happy. It certainly looked very lovely indeed. "This is beautiful," the man said. "May I see the other now?" The archangel took him down to hell. It was incredible. One huge party. People were laughing and dancing. The music was blaring. There was lavish spread of magnificent food. Everybody was drinking and carrying on. The man had never seen anything like it in his life, and his eyes grew as big as the silver dollars. The archangel leaned over to him and asked, "Well, which did you choose?" "Oh, this one," said the man excitedly. "I want to be in the hell." The archangel reminded the man that he only had one only choice. "Are you certain you want to be in hell?" The archangel asked the man. "Oh yes, I am positive," came the reply. The archangel clapped his hands, and in a flash the music stopped, the party disappeared, and the man found himself chained to a post with flames shooting at him from every direction. "No," he cried to another suffering soul. "Where did the party go? The people, the dancing, all the food?" "Oh," said the suffering soul, "you must have attended the marketing presentation. This is what hell is really like." The age of the professional student. The moral of the story: things are not always what they appear to be. Just ask the college graduates who have to move back home because they can't find a job in their field. Today, moving back home after college is a rule, not the exception. That's why they are becoming a boomerang generation. They get tossed out only to come spinning back home again. What college is best at preparing people for is more college. Get a degree and then another and another. Do what I do and you too can become a professional student. In 1960, we graduated 933 PhDs. Today, more than 40,000 students earn PhDs each year. Where do they all go? Back to college to teach others how to get a PhD, so that they can go back to college to teach others how to get a PhD. Do you see a pattern here? Folks, it's time we all took a reality check. Let's face it, when you try to use your BS degree to achieve job security and financial independence, you'll find out what BS really stands for. Back to school. Because that's where you'll head when you can't find a job. Add up the dream debt. Are you beginning to see how legal pyramid schemes are robbing you of your opportunity to achieve the American dream? Just look at the list of dream stealers again. A soon-to-be bankrupt social security system, outside CEO pay, and unaccounted for stock options, corporate welfare, and the decreased corporate taxes while increasing your personal taxes. Trillions of dollars in national debt supported by loans from decades-long enemies like Russia and China. College tuition costing increases at twice the rate of inflation, and an IRS that goes after individual taxpayers while playing footsie with corporate cash cows. You get the feeling the deck is being stacked against you? It reminds me of the old poker saying, if you sit down at a poker table, look around to see who the sucker is, and if you can't spot one, then get up and leave, cause the sucker is you. I don't like being played for a sucker, especially when it comes to my dreams. How about you?